It's unfortunate that after such a tragic event that you would have to really worry about the next stage of this, in this recovery and this rebuild, and the potential problems that may be attached and associated with just doing that. And look, I don't want to make light of any of the devastating loss that has resulted from the situation in Hawaii, in Maui, in Lahaina. So if you guys want to discuss that, I put up a video yesterday where we can engage in that in the comment section below. Here today on this video, I'd like to keep the conversation to just that of what happens next. The financial impact that will be probably one of the top 3 biggest hurdles that have to be cleared by everyone in the area as they begin to try and pick up the pieces and focus on some sort of rebuild efforts to get things back to normal. We all know the challenges of returning to normalcy, or attempting to, as we just recently tried to do that as an entire country, let alone world, in this post-pandemic recovery. But what we do have is case studies and history. History often repeats itself to paint a relatively clear picture of what could happen, what is likely to happen, and more importantly, how we can try to prevent, stop, avoid the worst from happening next. So we can see here from Associated Press, as death toll from Maui fire reaches 93. Authorities say effort to continue the losses is just, to count the losses is just starting. Now, this is in fact an article in reference to the physical loss. And this is something that I really want to point out from the video I uploaded yesterday, because counting the physical loss, human loss, it's going to be challenging. But again, they are already calling for a $5.5 billion financial loss from devastation and destruction and rebuild construction costs estimates. This is just the beginning, but I want to talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. Yahoo News, again, Associated Press shares, Lahaina residents worry a rebuilt Maui town could slip into the hands of affluent outsiders. Yeah, so basically what it boils down to is, as I said yesterday, again, if you haven't seen the video, go check it out. I'll make it the end screen of this video, so it'll automatically pop up on your screen and you can click it and watch it when you're done watching this video. But let's just take a look at this from a logical perspective of what has happened before and what is likely to happen again. And that is that, number one, the loss, the calculation, the tally of loss is not even possible yet. It's not. It's impossible. And as I read you the article from Associated Press, you're going to understand exactly why, if you don't already. But I'm going to share that with you. Number two, outside investors. These are the folks who have been sitting, waiting, anxiously awaiting to deploy capital, because their traditional investments and markets that they prefer aren't necessarily performing to the level in which they would enjoy the greatest return on investment. Therefore, they're looking for new forms of investment, potentially likely to be non-traditional forms of investment, but real estate, construction, relief efforts, housing, shelter, tourism, business, all of these are of high level of interest to investors. And this is, as we read this article, you'll see, going to be one of the biggest fears and worries for the Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii residents. Not to get distracted here, but pretty nice Harley Davidson. A friend of mine, he used to call them David Harleysons. I don't think he was dyslexic, he was just being a goof. But either way, I think we got a Ducati coming this way. Maybe. There might be something wrong with this throttle. Maybe it doesn't know how to hold an idle or something. Not really sure. But regardless, these investors are ready. And here's the deal. We typically have seen this happen in the past, and this is part of the problem that we've experienced here. Oh, you're gonna need a new clutch soon. So, I don't wanna make light of the situation, but he's burning that clutch. No pun intended. So basically, these investors, typically, here's what would happen. A major storm event would occur. And this major storm event would happen, literally be likely to happen annually. And the investors would be ready to deploy capital into the areas for the greatest returns, ROI. And these folks typically earned the title, the designation, the categorized stereotypical storm chaser. These are the folks with the really big jacked up F-250, F-350, Ram, high country, big old trucks, chrome forged wheels, 24s on 37s, wrapped. Everybody jumps out, suited and booted. Got uniforms, they got polos, they got all their paperwork. They're ready to go. And what they're gonna do, now we got 2 fire trucks back there. And what they're gonna do is they're going to invest into the areas in efforts of rebuilding based on the insurance companies paying out these deductibles. And these folks, I mean, they got this thing down to a science. They do it every year, and they're gonna get as much money as they can from the insurance company as quickly as possible, and typically try to tell business owners and homeowners that they don't have to worry about their deductible. What this ultimately did was create a huge problem for the insurance companies that the insurance companies are now trying to sift through and work through. Again, as I told you earlier in the video, that their investments, typical investments, aren't panning out the way that they would prefer. So when the insurance companies are losing hand over fist by these annual, not really sure. Maybe he's just new. Maybe he's a new rider. He spent $35,000 on a Ducati and he don't know how to ride it. Maybe, I don't know. But either way, these investors, the insurance companies would typically take the policy premiums, take that money and invest it. But here's the problem. When the policy premiums that were paid were pre-pandemic, ultimately pre-record inflation, and then you add on top of that multiple catastrophic loss through hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, fires, wildfires. On top of that, you add the increase and rise in rebuild costs through cost of materials and construction and labor, on top of them happening on top of each other, one on top of each other, while the insurance companies are just steadily paying out and the stock market is crashing, the crypto market is crashing, all their investment opportunities are pretty much crashing, not bringing back the returns that they would like. That creates a massive, massive problem. So the storm chasers only added to that burden. But at the end of the day, that is a little bit of a separate situation in comparison to what is about to happen. That a lot of these folks in Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii are concerned about and worried will ultimately ruin and destroy their homes. Lahaina residents worry a rebuilt Maui town could slip into the hands of affluent outsiders. Now, here's the thing. I don't think that they really are against affluent outsiders, because it really is a part of their tourist-based economy. They need affluent outsiders. But where's the money going to come from in order to rebuild and rebuild quickly? And this is that deployment of capital, as these affluent outsiders can and will faster than insurance companies, while they wait to then settle up with them, which is only going to then continuously increase the cost of insurance. But I'm not going to read the entire article, but I will try to hit some of these highlights here. It says a chronic housing shortage and an influx of second home buyers and wealthy transplants have been displacing residents like Palale, who give Lahaina its spirit and identity. And I assume this is Richie Palale here with the tattoos. And maybe I'll do it this way. Maybe it'll show up better if I do it this way. And a fast-moving wildfire that incinerated much of the compact coastal settlement last week has multiplied concerns that any homes rebuilt there will be targeted at affluent outsiders seeking a tropical haven that would turbocharge what is already one of Hawaii's gravest and biggest challenges: the exodus and displacement of native Hawaiian and local residents who can no longer afford to live in their homeland. I'm more concerned, is what he says, I'm more concerned of big island or big land developers coming in and seeing this charred land as an opportunity to rebuild. Hotels and condos that we can't afford to live in, that's what we're afraid of. Palale, 25 years old, was born and raised in Lahaina. He started working at an oceanfront seafood restaurant in town when he was 16 and worked his way up to be kitchen supervisor. He was training to be a sous chef. And then came Tuesday's wildfire, which lay waste to its wooden homes and historic streets in just a few hours, killing at least 93 people to become the deadliest wildfire in the U.S. in a century. Maui County estimates that more than 80% of the more than 2,700 structures in the town were damaged or destroyed, and 4,500 residents are newly in need of shelter. The blaze torched Palale's restaurant, his neighborhood, his friends' homes, and possibly even the 4-bedroom house where he pays $1,000 monthly to rent one room. And he and his housemates haven't had an opportunity to return to examine it themselves, though they've seen images showing their neighborhood in ruins. He said the town, which was once the capital of the former Hawaiian kingdom in the 1800s, made him the man he is today. Lahaina is my home. Lahaina is my pride, my life, my joy. And this is what he said in a text message, adding that the town has taught him lessons of love, struggle, discrimination, passion, division, and unity he could not fathom. The median price of a Maui home is $1.2 million, putting a single-family home out of reach for the typical wage earner. It's not possible for many to even buy a condo, with the median condo price at $850,000. Sterling Haiga, the executive director of Housing Hawaii's Future, a nonprofit organization that advocates for more housing in Hawaii, said the town is host to many houses that have been in the hands of local families for generations, but it's also been subject to gentrification. So a lot of more recent arrivals, typically from the American mainland who have more money and can buy homes at a higher price, were to some extent displacing local families in Lahaina. And it's a phenomenon he has seen all along Maui's west coast, where a modest starter home 2 decades ago now sells for $1 million. Residents with insurance or government aid may get funds to rebuild, but those payouts could take years, and recipients may find it won't be enough to pay rent or buy an alternate property in the interim. Many on Kauai spent years fighting for insurance payments after Hurricane Iniki slammed into the island in 1992, and said the same could happen in Lahaina. As they deal with this, the frustration of fighting insurance companies or fighting the Federal Emergency Management Agency or FEMA, many of them may well leave because there are no other options. And Palale vows to stay. He says, "I don't have any money to help rebuild. I'll put on a construction hat and help get this ship going. I'm not going to leave this place." Questions asked of, where am I going to go? It says that the governor, Josh Green, during a visit to Lahaina with FEMA, told journalists that he won't let Lahaina get too expensive for locals after rebuilding. And he said he is thinking about ways for the state to acquire land to use for workforce housing or open space as a memorial for those lost. He says, "We want Lahaina to be a part of Hawaii forever, and we don't want it to be another example of people being priced out of paradise." Now, this is very admirable of Green. However, this could potentially have devastating consequences as you have government intervening in private business and capitalism, and ultimately setting restrictions and mandates on how much money could be made, ultimately limiting the opportunities and potentially putting the residents in a far worse position than allowing outside investors to come in, rebuild, and name their price. Again, my previous video I put up last night, goes into briefly the details behind the struggles of working through insurance, repaying for damages and reimbursing and getting claims going and started. And this was based on previous instances in history when insurance was relatively good. You go into it today with the current situation that most of these insurance companies are in, like Allstate, like State Farm, like Progressive, like Farm Bureau, like Farmers, and it's not starting off on a good foot. Hawaii, Lahaina, as the death toll from a wildfire that razed a historic Maui town reached 93. And authorities warned Saturday that the effort to find and identify the dead was still in its early stages. It's already the deadliest U.S. wildfire for over a century. Crews and cadaver dogs have covered just about 3% of the search area. Maui Police Chief John Pelletier said in a statement, "And we've got an area that we have to contain that is at least 5 square miles, and it is full of our loved ones," noting that the death toll is likely to grow and none of us really know the size of it yet. He spoke as federal emergency workers picked through the ashen moonscape left by the fire that razed the centuries-old town of Lahaina. Teams marked the ruins of homes with a bright orange X to record an initial search and HR when they found human remains. It says here that the identifying the dead is extremely challenging because we pick up the remains and they fall apart. When we find our family and our friends, the remains that we're finding is through a fire that melted metal. 2 people have been identified so far. Dogs work the rubble, and their occasional bark used to alert their handlers to a possible corpse echoed over the hot and colorless landscape. It will certainly be the worst natural disaster that Hawaii ever faced. And this is according to Governor Josh Green. And he says, we can only wait and support those who are living. Our focus now is to reunite people when we can and get them housing and get them health care, and then turn to rebuilding. At least 2,200 buildings were damaged or destroyed in West Maui, of which 86% were residential. Across the island, he added, damage was estimated at close to $6 billion. And he said it would take an incredible amount of time to recover. So the confirmed death toll was later raised to 93 from the total of 89 announced in a press conference with Green and other officials. At least 2 other fires have been burning on Maui, with no fatalities reported thus far. In South Maui's Kahai area and in the mountainous inland communities known as Upcountry, a 4th broke out Friday evening in Kanapali, a coastal community north of Lahaina, but crews were able to extinguish it. Green said the County fire had affected 544 structures, of which 96% were residential. Emergency managers in Maui were searching for places for people displaced from their homes. As many as 4,500 people are in need of shelter. County officials said on Facebook earlier Saturday, citing figures from the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the Pacific Disaster Center. He encouraged those with missing family members to go to the Family Assistance Center. We need you to do the DNA test. We need to identify your loved ones, and those who escaped counted their blessings, thankful to be alive as they mourn those who didn't make it. This is truly a tragic story. And now I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what is likely to happen next. So basically, here's the deal. And we've seen this before. We are going to see people displaced, as they have already been. These fires have destroyed a majority of residential areas in a time in which housing is quite possibly the most profitable business out there, allowing for outside investors to come in, pour their money into these tropical luxury areas that command a premium by those affluent travelers and buyers and investors, while forcing the people who live in these areas out. Now, similar to Key West, Florida, after hurricanes in 2022 wiped out the area, the rebuild cost has pushed the working class of the area out. Everything is going up. The prices are getting more expensive. The home costs are going to be more expensive. The monthly payments are going to be greater. $1,000 a month for one room, double that. Insurance is going to be higher. Homeowners insurance, property insurance, flood insurance, fire insurance, which probably will then be separated from homeowners insurance to be its own special underwriting category. This is literally the beginning of a new pandemic. The insurance pandemic, the housing market pandemic. This reverse housing market crash isn't a result of the Fed. It's a result of perhaps maybe some of these natural disasters and acts of God that are slowly destroying the most likely areas to be of highest value for rebuild, while pushing out the people who were born there, who grew up there, who built it to begin with, that can now no longer afford to even be a guest there. They're going to strip wealth away from those who are ill prepared. Unfortunately, I've read that this situation, this epidemic, this massive destructive wildfire was something that had been previously shared with many people, that was going to be a huge problem, yet nothing was done. It's almost as if they kind of just wanted to wait for it to happen, for the golden opportunity. The government is not going to be there in any timely fashion to help, federal or local. Now, I appreciate the words that were said by Governor Green, but I've got my own opinions on that. Insurance companies are definitely going to be dragging their feet on this. You got to think. The insurance companies, even they have to send agents to adjusters. How are they going to get there? Where are they going to stay? These are extreme costs that they have really no plan for whatsoever at this point in time. Unless they want to start using drones again or fixed wing aircraft to assess these damages like they're doing to California residents to cancel and non-renew their policies. But I highly doubt it's going to be the case unless they just go through and do a widespread, wide swath. Anybody in this radius is ultimately a total loss and take your money. Then you got to think about personal effects. Do you have an inventory of these items that are pretty much irreplaceable that were also burned in the fire? Before we even get into the life insurance policies. But regardless, this is the beginning of something huge, and it's a beginning of something huge for the once previous residents of Maui, Lahaina, and Hawaii, and potentially other areas of the country and the world for that matter that are in danger zones that could be wiped out relatively easily through a natural disaster, and then see investors come in and, stake claim on this now defunct and seemingly undervalued property. It's going to be a game changer for those investors who have hundreds of millions, billions, if not trillions of dollars. Now, where did they get it from? That's a discussion for another video. But they are sitting there waiting. They don't want to put their money in the stock market. They don't want to put their money in the cryptocurrency market. They don't want to put their money in traditional real estate investments like they have in the past because they're not producing enough of a return. But a situation like what's happening in Hawaii right now, they will be chomping at the bit to pour in as much money as humanly possible. And they've got it. They got it like that to spend it. And they also got it like that to wait. Because these folks, they don't want to make money overnight. Although they would enjoy it and they would like it just like everybody else. They want to make money over the long term. And history has shown exactly how they're going to be able to do that. And it has shown it in just a relatively short period of time. So you see, what's going to happen is that they're going to come in here and they're going to scoop up any and everything that they want, pennies on the dollar, okay? Then they're going to rebuild at much higher costs. Luxury amenities for the affluent, well-off, rich, and folks with plenty of available credit on their American Express or MasterCard or Visa. But they're not going to sell. No, they're going to buy and they're going to hold. Again, time in the market is better than timing the market. But at the same time, if you can do both, that's what they're going to do. They're timing the market. And literally, unfortunately, this devastation is their time to jump in. And they've been waiting for it. However, they're going to ride this out for as long as possible. Number one, they have to wait to get their money back from the insurance companies, which they will. But this could take several years. Time that most of the people who lived there don't have. They don't even have the ability now to afford to find a temporary place to stay, despite the fact that there's no temporary place to stay. 96% has been destroyed. So, on top of that, they already realized the true value of real estate. And it's not what we once thought it was, which the experts once said. When you sell, no, the true value in real estate now is when you rent. Therefore, it's no longer a buy low, sell high situation. It's a buy low or high, doesn't matter. Control the rent, control the people. Control it in perpetuity, indefinitely, whereas you make the rules. You set the price. You control the entire market. You and your buddies, of course. As you guys are swinging clubs on the golf course and drinking Mai Tais on the beach. Yeah, that's the game plan. And unfortunately, this is the truth. Granted, Governor Green may try to step in and try to create some opposition, maybe set a pick, block and tackle, but he can't hold them off forever. Without them, he'll be a governor of an area that literally disappears for years waiting on insurance. Or he'll be the governor of an area that has been rebuilt relatively quickly, bringing it back to better than before standards and ultimately producing even higher tax revenues. And if he doesn't do it, he will be voted out and someone else voted in who will. Now, again, this is not to make light of the situation that has occurred and the devastation and the tragic loss, but this is more so an educational and helpful video to paint a picture of likely what is to happen, what's to come. Understanding investing, investors, the markets, strategy, savings, wealth, building wealth. And if you guys want to continue this conversation, then just do me a favor. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video, comment down below, and I'll see you guys real soon.